Early on in my barefoot journey, I ran across these armored footwear, and they're fantastic for protecting your feet and developing some level of endurance walking barefoot. But I didn't want to pay 44 bucks to have these. So I came up with a way I could produce them myself at almost no cost because the silicone was already laying around, a pair of old socks and a pair of inserts. And so I started with an old pair of socks, just put a pair of insoles into those, and then I stuffed that with paper towels. In fact, actually, I used some paper towel and some cotton. And what I wanted to do was to fill that sock out so that it was the basic shape of a full foot, and I could apply the silicone to that. And so what I'm going to do next, once I have the general shape that I had in mind, was just began applying silicone. And so what I'm going to do is, in this case, I'm just going to follow the gray portion of the sole, hoping that will give me some moisture protection. I'm just applying the silicone. Working with silicone in the past to waterproof fabric, one of the things that I know is you almost want to press that silicone into the material or thin it and saturate the material. I didn't really want to saturate the material because I wanted this to be as flexible as possible. So I'm just applying it, and then I'm taking a trowel like you might use for floor adhesive, and I'm then spreading that across the material and pressing it into the material. In areas where the material was particularly thin, the silicone does press through to the inside, but that's just fine. And so I spread it, and using the floor adhesive trowel, it allowed me to give it some texture. And so I spread that as evenly as possible. And on the sole, I made it a little bit thicker than I did on the top because I do want that protection at the bottom. One of the challenges when you start barefooting is that your feet will likely not have the level of endurance, or you'll be more sensitive to rough terrain, even grass and sharp stones. And so you can develop that over time, but this type of footwear helps to protect your feet as you're developing that endurance. And so this gives me an opportunity to slip these on. I can still walk on gravel. I can walk in heavy grass and even much heavier and more harsh terrain that I might find out even in the woods. And so I want to make sure that they're evenly coated all over the sole and then up over the toe, because that gives it some form. And if you look closely at the Goatgrip brand, which is probably the most popular armored sock footwear out there that I've noticed, what I was going for was that overall around protection at the sole and up around my foot. And so I want to make sure that coating is nice and thick. There's plenty of silicone there. Now, when I'm finished with this, I can either remove the insole and wear this as just an armored sock, or leave the insole intact for additional protection. It really kind of depends on where I'm trekking and where I'm hiking. I also found that I wanted some protection up over the toe and up over the heel. In fact, after having done these, I got them up to dry and just hung them in a controlled area where the silicone could cure. I removed all of my padding, and they're really flexible. The silicone is fantastic. Silicone is non-toxic. It's not going to have any negative or adverse effect for most people and for skin contact. That was very important to me. And as you can see here, these roll up very compact, making them very easy to pack, and they slip on and off just like a pair of socks. And they really do a great job at protecting your feet from any sharp surfaces. It only took about 24 hours for them to cure, and I can walk on almost any kind of surface with these. They're very slip resistant. They're very protective for my feet. And even if I bought the silicone at $11 a tube, I can get at least 2 pairs of socks per tube. So I've got no more than $11 in these armored socks.